Clock, call the PD&Z meeting to order. Regular session, roll call, Ryan Miller called in, Kyle Marskin here, Mary Atkinson,
Here.
Kenneth Haynes,
Here.
Christy Kennard,
Here.
Dolores Martin,
Here.
and William Richardson.
Here.
If we stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Do we have, in a regular agenda. So you want that one?
I think if the board wants, maybe
Or just put that at the
action.
end?
Yeah.
Okay, we can, y'all good with that?
So you guys can.
Whatever, you're the boss.
Item A to the bottom.
Okay,
That's what you want.
on the regular agenda.
Do we have any public comments? Do we have any candidates for PD&Z attending? If they would, come up to the mic and state your name and.
Oh, my
I've been asked by a council member to attend the meeting, which I understand you have to do. So that's why I'm here. I've been here a long time. My company's been here almost 50 years. I'm in Manvel Realty, Manvel Development Company, so pretty familiar with what you guys do. So. And you, how long have you been here?
17, 18 on the committee? Oh, I've been living
You've been here
I've
since
lived my whole life
17,
here.
18, or you're here 17 or 18 years?
I've been here about 17, 18 years on this committee.
Yes, I remember your face.
Back with, yes,
Way back when.
we've been together a long time.
Yeah, I used to be at MEDC, so
Yes, yeah,
that's what it was.
What was your name, sir?
Mark Lowe.
yeah.
Okay.
Mark Lowe. Thank you.
Anybody else? Or, on the consent agenda, approval of minutes. We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor? Motion approved. We're going to move item A to the end. If we'd go on to regular agenda, item B, consideration of possible action and approval, final plat of Valencia, section 13.
Yes. This proposed plat is for a residential section within Valencia development. This the western side of Chocolate Bayou and the southern side of the proposed Dogwood Avenue. The proposed plat subdivides about 21 acres tract into 68 residential lots, 4 blocks, and 3 reserves for landscape, open space, drainage, and utility. This proposed section includes traditional single-family residential lots with a minimum lot width of 60 foot and minimum lot area of 7,200 square feet. The proposed plat generally conforms to the preliminary plat approved in March 2024. Staff recommends denial of this proposed plat based on several deficiencies identified in the submittal. For example, a vicinity map needs to be revised. They need to provide signed Mylars. They need to provide more informations. They're missing informations on that. There are some corrections they need to do on the plat to be matched with the approved civil plans. And they need to include drainage district's signature on the drainage district block and some typos.
I'm not going to have a question. I'm going to have a comment like I always do. 17 things on this one deal, and how long have they been working with the city?
Several years they're working with the city. Same as before, staff reached out to the applicant and asked for provide even typos or very small revisions, and they said they are going to resubmit it in the resubmittal date. So,
They're going to do what?
but we need to
Submit it.
take it to the to the PD&Z meeting in 30 days.
I feel like they need to be talked to like a mother.
Again, we have a shot clock by state law to act on it, or else it's deemed approved. So if they're going to resubmit, but it's after that 30 days, we're still stuck having to take action on it before they resubmit, or else it's deemed approved by law. So that's why we have to take action tonight.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, but, okay.
Yes.
But to be positive, we have to put in,
We need a motion and a second to get it before
Motion
the board,
to
but you don't have to vote for it. You can vote against it,
Okay,
but we
so
need
I
the motion and
motion to-
second for it to
Yeah.
come before the board.
I'll second.
motion to pass, okay,
With all conditions
with all conditions,
in
yes.
the second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion failed. On to item C, consideration and possible action to approve the final plat of Valencia Section 15.
This proposed plat is also in the residential section in Valencia development. This section is located along the west side of Chocolate Bayou, south side of proposed Charlotte Street. Proposed plat subdivides about 13-acre tract into 55 residential lots, 3 blocks, and 4 reserves for landscape, open space, drainage, and utility. Proposed section includes traditional single-family residential lots with a minimum lot width of 50 feet and minimum lot area of 6,000 square feet. Proposed plat generally confirms the preliminary plat approved in February 2024. Staff recommends denial of this proposed plat, same based on several deficiencies identified in the submittal. They need to provide more information, signed Mylars, many typos, and some corrections to be matched with the approved civil plans, drainage district's approval, and signatures.
So they're going to resubmit this also? then?
Yes.
Okay. So I
This is motion and
proposed
second.
motion to pass with
Do we have a motion?
recommendations.
I'll second.
And second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion fails. So, item D, consideration and possible action to approve final plat for Manvel Town Center, Lowe's Reserve.
This proposed plat is for a new commercial section in the Manvel Town Center that subdivides about 12-acre tract into 1 block and 3 unrestricted reserves. City staff recommends approval of Manvel Town Center Lowe's Reserve final plat with 2 conditions. The southern boundary line of the plat does not match the recorded plat for Manvel Town Center Section 1, and they decided to provide a replat of that section to reflect changes on Reserve B, Block 1 of the recorded plat. And another thing is, since this proposed plat is a final plat and it's not a replat, they need to remove the reason of replat from the title block.
Any questions? Motion? Second?
Motion with the 2 conditions.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? All opposed? Item E, consideration and possible action to direct staff to provide applicants written statements of the conditions for conditional approvals and the reasons for disapproval of any plans or plats that were not approved per Texas Local Government Code 212.0091. We don't have any? Okay.
Yeah, we
Oh, we do?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Opposed? So five. Oops. And back to item A. Presentation and discussion of future Manvel comprehensive plan and thoroughfare plan by Kendig Keys Collaborative. Did I say that right? Okay.
Well, you got close.
Sorry, I always forget. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to talk about the future of Manvel. I'm Jennifer Mack. I'm an architect and senior urban designer with Kinda Keys Collaborative. Gary Mitchell unfortunately had a family emergency, so he was supposed to be here tonight and wasn't able to make it, but he should be here probably for the likely for the other two workshops that we have planned. So this is kind of what the focus of today is. Mostly we're going to show you a little bit of the first two future Manvel sections that we have, but I wanted to briefly touch base on the update of the project accomplishments and next steps that we've just to kind of give you a little bit of a timeline on where we're at here. So the Manvel Today report is available on the project website. You can click there on the link, or you can also go to it through the Future Manvel website, which is on the city's homepage. There's also the community survey report that's also there, and then the strategic plan was recently adopted on February 3rd, so that's also available. The next two workshops with you all are going to be on March 24th and April 28th. After that, we'll have the City Council workshop on May 27th, and then go back to you all for the PDZ Commission public hearing and recommendation roughly on June 23rd, with the City Council public hearing on July 7th. So that's just kind of a brief timeline. And to kind of look at it a little bit more simply, we also included this graphic here, which shows that we're in the orange right now, orange-brown, and the project will likely end around the May to July timeframe when we'll have that City Council third workshop, plus the open house on the draft plans, and then the hearing draft after that. So these are the project websites that I told you about. So if you click on one, for example, it'll bring you up to this page here. And then from here, you'll be able to navigate to the different areas that I just talked about. Just wanted to kind of briefly show you that. So here, the notable statistics that's pulled out from the Today report. Then you can click on this View Manvel Today report, and it'll take you to the full document. So this is meant to be the summary, interactive plan summary. And once we do the comprehensive plan is adopted, then it'll be updated so that you can get a brief snapshot there for people that may not want to dive into the plan. And then you'll have access to the full plan from there. So one other thing I just quickly wanted to point out before I jump back to the presentation here is this plans, that Manvel 2045 strategic plan. So that's where you'll be able to see the full document that was adopted. And then jumping back to the PowerPoint here. So in your packet, you all should have the outline for the comprehensive plan. Let's see. The outline basically has the standard table of contents and the acknowledgements. Then the introduction section, which is also included in your packet, has the purpose of the comprehensive plan, the use of the plan, the city authority to prepare and adopt the plan. Now, it's meant to be an online plan, and it will be online once the draft is ready. But I just wanted to mention that some of the things you'll be able to do is like click on it, so that if somebody was interested in seeing how the authority, it links back to the Texas Local Government Code as well as the city ordinance. So will be in there. There's also the geographic coverage and context of the plan. That's just going to be, it's a brief 2-paragraph. You'll see that in the introduction. I don't want to read this out because it's in the packet, but just kind of letting you know what's all in there if you haven't had a chance to read it yet. But The geographic coverage also has a link on the online version so that you'll be able to click to that Today report where you can learn more about it. Also, we talk about the process and how it ties into the strategic plan, the leadership and community engagement activities that we've had thus far, the different plan focus areas, and then the framework for action, which also has the description of the 5 action types. And so each section is going to have each section is going to have a section of actions, and those actions are going to be tied to the different action types. So one thing I did want to call out on the introduction section of the plan is this graphic that we have there. It's to basically show how the strategic plan that was recently adopted overlaps with the comprehensive plan. It's not going to be a plan that just gets put up on a shelf. Instead, the strategic plan is kind of the vision and mission with the community values and the consensus direction, so kind of the aspirations. And now we're transitioning to this portion of the workshop, which is a comprehensive plan, which is the opportunities and challenges, goals and key actions, basically the how, when, and who. And then from there, then you get into this different specific plans, such as the thoroughfare plan. The other 3 are not part of this project that we have, but we are working on the thorough plan too, but just kind of want to give a graphic representation of how it all works together. So again, part of the strategic plan was the vision, which led to those guiding principles. If you recall, there was like 8 of them. And then now we're transitioning into the goals for the comprehensive plan. So these key planning issues and considerations are partly our observation, plus what we've heard thus far through leadership and the community engagement. So the environment section of the comp plan provides the physical framework for other topics like land use, infrastructure, transportation, and parks and trails. So some environment issues are a side effect of when areas start to urbanize. Others are regional and even global, like climate. So a local city does not necessarily have, full control over them. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through each one of these. But I would like, if there's any that we're missing here, please let me know. And then that way we can make sure that we add to this. This was the list that we have so far. So we have air quality, regional plus localized with increasing vehicular traffic. Climate trends with related heat and weather severity, increased flood risk. Disruption of natural drainage and widening modification of creeks and bayous to handle upstream drainage. Drought preparedness and conservation measures when needed. Habitat fragmentation and loss. Increased impervious hard surfaces, so heat and runoff effects. Loss of open space, vegetation, and mature tree cover, and transition in species with development landscaping. More urban lighting, so maintaining those dark skies. Oil field and pipelines legacy, potential increase in failures over aging septic systems over time, sustainable construction practices, air quality with increasing water discharges, urban runoff, and soil disturbance erosion. So, not sure if there's any that anyone else can think of at the moment of any other key planning issues and considerations related to environment that we need to include. One of the things that we do like to kind of address our accomplishments. So this slide has examples of things that the city can control, like zoning, for example, and examples of needing to work with other partner agencies such as drainage. So sometimes it helps to kind of look at the accomplishments, and then if this sparks any other issues or planning issues that we should consider, please, chime in. So far, drainage, wastewater, and water master plans and related design criteria. Resulting capital investments, including Acre Lake Stormwater Detention Project. MUD's coordination regarding water and wastewater systems services. The zoning ordinance with minimum 1 acre open single-family residential district and the planned unit development district to accommodate the new master plan developments. The Parks Master Plan. Partnerships with area agencies such as Brazoria County Conservation and Reclamation District Number 3, Brazoria Drainage Districts Number 4 and 5, Gulf Coast Water Authority and TxDOT, and participation in regional planning and coordination through HGAC. So are there any others that anyone can think of that we should include on that accomplishments list?
Surface purchase of surface water.
Okay, yep.
BRA.
I'm sorry?
From Brazos River Authority, BRA.
Mm-hmm. Are there any others? No? Okay. So this map we included, which I know you're all very familiar, but it just kind of helps when you see it again, especially in this way. So this is the Manvel city limits with the red solid or kind of transparent color. And then adding in the orange there is with the ETJ. And so far, that orange solid color that you see is development agreements signed. We know this is changing, so this is kind of a point in time, but it's still kind of good to look at all this information. So this is from the U.S. Geological Survey mapping. It's showing basic features such as the natural waterways plus man-made water supply canals and drainage canals. So you can see Mustang Bayou and Chocolate Bayou are the major natural water features in the Manvel area. So Mustang Bayou kind of runs here, and then Chocolate Bayou is down here. This is the watershed map from the 2007 Comprehensive Plan. This map shows the major watersheds associated with those waterways, so the green boundary lines. And then these are the 50-foot elevation contours. So this map illustrates the relatively flat coastal plain with only about a 15-foot elevation change across Manvel from west to east. So this makes drainage very challenging, and it's why lift stations are needed in this area to pump the wastewater to treatment plants.
We know that one.
And then this map here, it shows the current floodplain mapping for the area. These conditions evolve over time as land development, public roads, and other projects change natural drainage patterns and as climate trends affect storm intensity. Particular focus for Manvel is addressing the sheet flow drainage, which is that light blue area here. That can make Highway 6 impassable during severe storm events, which is very challenging, especially with it being an evacuation route. So this map is also from the USGS. This is from 2021, so it's a point in time, again, like I said, so I know that this is already very outdated. I mean, it doesn't even show Manvel Town Center here. So the numbers to the right that you see are just part of the classification system, so it doesn't really mean anything other than that. But basically, this map shows how the land surface in the area was already rapidly changing since 2021. So, it's like I mentioned, it's always going to be behind, but you can kind of see there how little green is actually left, being the deciduous forest, evergreen forest, mixed forest. There is quite a bit on this map as pasture, hay, and cultivated crops, the yellow and brown colors that you see there, but even that is going to be very different if it was mapped today. So once it gets up to date, you'll see it'll be very different. This is the impervious cover. This is another map that will always be behind, but it shows how hard surfaces increase with land development, especially to accommodate vehicular circulation and parking. Again, you can see there in the corner right here that 288 and Highway 6, that Manvel is not yet reflected there, so it's going to be very different. The increased impervious cover affects the amount and speed of storm water runoff and also contributes to heat and urbanizing effects. And since we're talking about the environment section, that's why we're just including these maps just to kind of give you some more background. The canopy cover, this map shows kind of the flip side to what we just saw. So on the previous map, showing the impervious cover, now looking back at the tree canopy and that where the dense vegetation is concentrated. As you can kind of see, it's typically around waterways and in other areas not cleared for pasture use or land development. Now this map shows other physical factors in the Manvel area. So you can see the pipelines quite a bit, especially on the east side of Manvel. That's the purple, and then the green are the electric power transmission lines. So I know you've seen this graphic before, but the land use and community character, so it's looking beyond just the types of land use to character. So, not every community is going to have this whole spectrum, right? So in rural, you can have natural, agricultural, and countryside. Suburban, you can have estate and suburban. And then urban, you can have auto-urban, urban, and urban core. So something like urban core would be, like downtown Houston, for example. So that density would not be, something for Manvel. I love this slide here because it really helps to illustrate what I'm trying to talk about. Now, it's not going into every single one of these previous ones that we're talking about, but it kind of gives you an idea of what does rural actually mean. So in that upper left-hand graphic there, you can see for rural, the amount of open space, the green. So mainly green space, at least 3/4, and then having some buildings and even little less paving. That would be something that we would consider a rural character. Then you have suburban, which is little less open space, probably roughly amount the same or a little bit more on the buildings. Paving, not quite as much as you can see as like auto-urban, for example. Auto-urban would be mostly paving, with buildings and little open space. And then, of course, urban would be even more buildings, less paving because you're going to be more clustered in a centralized area, and then even less open space. So when I'm talking about character, that's these pictures here kind of show you, what I mean by rural or suburban, auto-urban, and then the urban. The auto-urban and urban kind of look similar, but behind the community character graphic here, you can kind of see some of that open space that I was talking about. So a focus on character is going to be the framework for the land use section of the comprehensive plan. Beyond the spread of certain land use types, so residential, commercial, in a fast-growing community, it's also about that change in the character that leads to concerns. We've already heard that quite a bit in some of our previous listening sessions. So then this graphic here is a map of the infrastructure. So more intensive development happens only with public water and wastewater service. So this map shows the current extent of such infrastructure in the Manvel area. You can see it's mostly along 288 and then some along Highway 6. MUDs in Texas enable areas to develop that aren't yet served by municipal infrastructure. So this map shows the extent of mud formation in the area, concentrated around the 288 corridor. And this next map shows the major developments that largely correspond with the MUDs. So you can see if we toggle kind of back and forth here, that there's a lot of overlap between the two. So the key planning issues and considerations so far that we're aware of are the development pressure at the edge of the Houston metro area growth, rising land appraisal values and tax bills, land use drainage connection, expansion of impervious surfaces, so more and faster storm runoff, land use transportation connection, trip generation by land use types, need for road network connectivity, context-sensitive roadway design, another residential zone possibly between 1 acre and 6,300 square foot minimum lot, conservation cluster option needed, long-term non-residential tax base, nature quality of development along Highway 6 corridor and others, desire to avoid an onslaught of chain retail, restaurants versus local flavor. We heard that quite a bit. Land use pattern implications for public services, amenities, for example, city parks, new library, and future school campuses. So are there any others that we should consider?
Community center is one of the biggest ones discussed by PJL and our 160 acres, some need for community meeting space.
When you say conservation cluster, is that just some little thing in a neighborhood, or is that a couple of thousand acres, or what is that?
It depends. It could be a variety of those. You know, it kind of depends on what. As we start to really dive into the land use map, the character map, then we'll be able to kind of detail that out. So it depends on what it is that we're wanting to do. It's actually on the next slide of some question marks, and if you don't mind, if we can hold off on that and once we get to the next slide. But on this one, are there any other key planning and issues, considerations we should think of? No. You jumped ahead. Okay, so on this slide here, this is showing the current and emerging development patterns in the area. So the little yellow house kind of icons that you see here are representative of the large areas of residential in the master plan developments. The little shopping carts here are representative of the commercial activity that's expanding along Highway 6 and 288. And then down here, we have on the southeast corner, some industrial activity on Highway 6. And then other community anchors like the schools and public facilities are the blue here, as well as this black government kind of icon. Then we also have the police department, fire department, and public utilities along Masters Road. And then the current and future park sites here in this black kind of tree bench icon area, roughly. So now the area with the question marks here, those are, so basically everything, all the icons are basically spoken for, as well as these solid colors. A lot of these areas with the question marks could potentially redevelop over time. So we'll need to make decisions on both future land use potential as well as the potential character of those areas.
The pink down there, is that Meridiana?
Yes.
South of Highway 6?
Yes.
Okay. I can make my mind, so.
You can see it real small on the computer. You have it pulled up.
I don't know. It didn't load for me, so I just, okay, so you're saying the question marks are, we don't know what they're going to be. Is that what you're saying? We don't know. It could be conservation. It could not be conservation.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where that decision that we need to make. What do we want it to be? Do we want some of the areas, for example, like in this east and south area, to be more rural or semi-rural? To have that kind of character, because we can't do anything, at least in the near term, with any of this that's recently built out.
And then the black, besides the government, you said was parks. It's got like a little
Yes.
tree, right? Okay, so that would be Akery, and then
Croy Park.
where is,
Is that it?
that's Croy, but is this, the one towards the top, is that Dolores right there?
This one is Dolores, and then this one here is the city center.
Right, okay. Okay, well, we need more conservation. we need more, that's, to my opinion is, we got to have a place for these animals to go because they're running from what we're building now.
Right.
So my main concern is the conservation. I don't want the bees to die and the butterflies not to come through here. So that's just my 2 cents, is I think we need to use some of those question marks for stuff like that. So, and it could be anywhere, not just in one certain area, because with all the build out at 288 and 6, all of them are gone. They're gone, you know. You hear people complaining about the coyotes eating their cats and stuff like that. Well, you know, that's part of this area. You know, it was, you know, rice, it was low-lying areas, but we have to have room for these animals to go, because if we lose these animals, we're going to lose our lives. Because we, you know, it's just a part of the way it happens. We have to have the bees, and we have to live. You know, we got to find a way to get more trees. I know that the Garrett guys with the trees, but we definitely got to make more room for conservation, for animals, for us to go to, for us to learn about if we need to learn about it. But it needs to be all over the city, not just in one concentrated area. So that's just my opinion.
Well, I think if you go to the next slide too, it's pretty good about like showing like a big portion of that, like everything to the right of Masters Road right now, it is mostly residential. It's just those larger lots, minimum of acres, stuff like that. So you do see a lot of that west, east of Masters Road. Am I speaking correctly in that?
Yes.
So you see a lot of that on that next slide. It shows a lot of that in the yellow is that open single-family residential district. So most of that is residential, but it's not like neighborhoods. It's more.
Right, it's acreage, and if someone decides to sell.
Well, that's I think that's where we come in, right? Is deciding whether or not that's gonna.
Right.
So you're saying larger lots?
Well, I mean, that's what from what I understand, if you try, I mean, a lot of what you're trying to build east of Masters Road, a lot of that currently that's residential is all minimum of an acre lot. Is that correct? Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, city people. Is that right?
For open single-family residential district, the minimum lot size is 1 acre.
Yeah, and a big chunk of that is east of Masters Road?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at that next slide, this one right here that she's talking about, a lot of that yellow question mark area is that open single family.
Just that
Yeah.
area.
So we see a big chunk of that in those areas. Now, that doesn't mean some of those won't come back and get, I mean, a lot of this probably used to be zoned, open single family, and it's no longer there. But, I mean, you do see a significant amount of land still that's available for that. But, the more it develops, 20 years ago, you looked at this and it was all yellow. So we just have to continually be mindful of what the future of that looks like. I guess that's what the whole purpose of this plan is.
And with the two big parks going, Dolores and Hickory, that's, I'm hoping will help with some of that. And the good thing is they're on opposite sides of the city, which I just want to say, I don't want one concentrated
Right.
area just being that, because we need it all over.
Right.
We really do. So.
What are the 3 circles?
Yes.
The 2 ovals and 1 circle?
So the white circles are areas that we may need to focus on more for the future. So for example, this one here, the north central city limit areas, a lot of the areas around here are already developing, but it's also near infrastructure and schools, et cetera. So, perhaps a closer look at that area. This one, just south of that, is near the city-owned center property, which will be another major community anchor. So perhaps needing to take a closer look of what do you want it to actually look like around that area. And then also this one around right here is, the Masters Road corridor. So potentially taking a deeper dive into those three areas. Or if there's somewhere else that if we miss the mark and there should be a different area that we should be considering, we can also look at those. But we thought that these 3 kind of made the most sense because of the infrastructure and the development along 288. kind of doing a deeper dive on future workshops for that area in particular. All of the area, but these three in particular, like being of major concern because of the anchors.
Well, no, one of those areas is the one we talked about last week, that top left one. That top left oval on the left-hand side. That's the one where they were trying to put that gas station in last
Yes.
week. And we were like,
Yes.
what are you doing? Yeah, there's nothing, yeah.
So in your learned opinion, if we start putting water line and sewer each way, it will continue
Oh,
to
yeah.
grow and take more of the land because people will start putting in more neighborhoods. I mean, I know we need water and sewer in parts of the areas, but if we were real selective, is that something that would be better than to just do it, you know?
You can,
Community values, that goes back to your community values. What do we value and what do we want?
Yeah.
right.
and you can control the character with, not with the plan, but with the plan, we can create the future land use map, which can inform the zoning, and the zoning could be structured in a way to where maybe like there's increase in setbacks, you know, maybe there's like barriers, landscape barriers, you know, especially denser ones between things that maybe you might not necessarily want to see off the frontage roads, you know, things like that.
And
That
that was going to be my next question, that, you know, more foliage, more stuff. Not necessarily, I live right next to the power station, and they have gradually been growing it and growing it and growing it, and now it's an eyesore. But the vegetation that's there is only there in the summertime.
Yep.
So it's kind of, you know, and that's kind of where I'm getting at too. I wish that I would have known they were going to make it that big before I bought the land 20 years ago, but I know as we grow. So that's something that we could put in for zoning and stuff, is putting that vegetation in, planting those trees and making sure that it's there, so that we don't have to look at the feeder road or the building next door or whatever.
Right, and also, one other thing that I forgot to mention is that, so in order to kind of control character, you could also do other things with your zoning ordinance, which you could say that X amount of land, say, I'm going to throw a crazy number out there, but say 50% of the land cannot be impervious cover, so it can't be buildings, can't be, you know, concrete, things like that, so that you have to have more open space, and that also will help, you know, with a little bit of the development. But it depends on the type of character that you're looking for, that the city wants.
Gotcha.
So this is of course, your current zoning map. So based on our discussion here and based on the future land use map, this could very well evolve and, you know, change.
That's what it does.
I'm sorry?
It's just what it does, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, it will change. It depends on what sells and what doesn't,
Right, yeah.
Or what is for sale.
or what's for sale, yes.
And then this next one here is the same map, but we just showed the State Highway 6 overlay district so that you can see what it looks like in comparison to the areas that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Let you go, will it let you go on?
We know that city leaders want to manage the type and quality of commercial development that occurs along Highway 6, so we wanted to make sure that we highlighted this one. And then this next map shows the focus areas over the floodplain map. So the north central areas are mostly out of the floodplain, along with their other location factors, so proximity to developing areas, infrastructure, schools, city property, et cetera.
Okay, and on the flood map, are you, I know the light blue and the 100-year floodplain and all that, but is it possibly saying that the rest of this stuff doesn't flood?
It's not saying that it doesn't necessarily flood, but because we know that there's always a chance, but the likelihood is technically less in
Based on historical.
the other areas than, like in these dark blue.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So with all the development that they have going on, how often are they updating the flood? And you may not know that, the answer to that question, but.
It feels like every year, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, and sometimes you don't know until an event comes, to be honest. Like, we can think everything's great, and they can think the infrastructure's there, and theoretically on paper it looks good, and then there's an event, and
Now you know.
now you know.
Then,
Just remember, the federal ones are updated every so often, and it could be 10, 20 years. I mean, the last update that we've had. But every development now in town is now designed not to flood its neighbor. They have to have drainage plans and a whole ordinance to comply with the whole goal that every development takes care of its own drainage now on site and doesn't affect the neighbor. So that's what modern development has to have happen. That's why Kyle is always asking about drainage.
Yes. And on that note, who's responsible if it does flood your neighbor?
There's a lot of law based on that.
I know, that's what I
So
was wondering.
there's no easy answer.
Okay.
But typically, if you flood your neighbor, you're responsible for it. But there's a lot of stuff that can happen.
Yeah, because I know Mustang's a big key. Highway 6 is now a big key. So there's a lot of big factors in drainage right now, so.
Well, you have some people that were draining across their neighbor for years, illegally almost,
Yes,
and to the point where when they go to develop and then they stop that from happening, then it backs up on to the natural flow of what's happened for 100 years, perhaps, is no longer flowing the way it was typically flowing, and now it's rerouted. And that's why engineering and that's why drainage districts, is a very serious thing in Manvel, because we were built on rice fields. We were built to flood in a way.
well, as I say, we're downhill.
Yeah,
So-
and we're flat.
Flat, yeah.
kind of, sort of.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of strategy in how they build, and, you do your best.
But you won't know, because I know, Section 5 of Lakeland doing Barrel, the streets flooded really bad. And I know they've come out and worked on it, but we won't know if what they did actually worked until we have another major rain event, so.
It's just the nature of it.
So
It's
you had to
nature.
buy a boat.
Well, Dolores, remember, we had a lot of complaints from developers back in the day about the really horrible onerous drainage requirements that Manvel had, and how if they didn't build all these ponds, they could get more lots and blah, blah, blah. And then Harvey happened, and there was, if I recall, no flooding in any of the new homes in the new subdivisions. And then it became a marketing banner. We didn't flood during Harvey, we didn't flood during Harvey. So the drainage system as it was designed, under a major flood event like Harvey, maybe the streets flooded, but it kept it out of the houses. So it was actually designed to do, and it performed pretty well under Harvey. I wish Dan were here because he lives this flood stuff, and he is our floodplain administrator, or was. And he's been certified for all this. He would love to tell you, it's one of his favorite topics, so. Anyway, it is an important thing, and I'm glad it's got covered in the comp plan, because that does drive a lot of development and a lot of planning, including a major discussion we just had about the part of Manvel that's not in a drainage district. They call it no man's land, which is where I live. And how we could certainly use some planned drainage and some attention to the drainage down in that area. And that's why I think that you saw big cows there. It's probably still going to be cows and will be cows until, I don't know if that's ever going to get developed.
But you're backed up now to Meridiana, right? Aren't they?
Meridiana is designed to take care of all of its own drainage and not impact, the areas next to
They're
it.
all supposed to.
But there's massive amounts of, I can tell you, there's a massive amount of drainage out there. They've, at least on paper, it looks really good, the way that they've, designed it to do what it's supposed to do.
Simple things like next door, if you see stripes, you see that
Yeah.
big pond they have, was actually designed to capture, because we abandoned right-of-way and gave it to them for free. In exchange, they oversized it so it could capture here, this building that we're in right now.
Right.
And if you see, that's a pretty big,
It's probably a pretty
Yes.
valuable
Big
piece of
pond.
property that, they did to protect.
because during Harvey, when the city hall was next door, we literally got 8 inches of water in there. We were carrying computers
Yeah.
to higher ground and putting city hall in the ESD building. So this area you're in right now floods, and this building was designed because Stripes didn't flood. It was a new building to the new floodplain elevations, didn't flood. So this building is actually the same elevation Stripes was. That's why it's built up on a massive amount of concrete, if you look at the slab this building is on. But all of this ties into a lot of thought, and it affects development and the comp plan, so it's good to have this addressed. Trying to segue back to you.
All right, here we go.
And the next two workshops, we'll have our our subs with us. So with ARC and Consor will be here, transportation, and we'll go into growth capacity next time as well. So just wanted to mention that. So this is our very preliminary concept of what the area could look like in the future, and reflects a lot of the input we heard during the Manvel Today phase and the strategic plan. As you mentioned, the open space conservation is that green, area, so potentially preserving a lot of that. The circles that you see are representative of continuing to encourage master plan residential development where growth pressures are greatest. The kind of red dotted circles are gateway commercial nodes, so focusing the most intensive commercial development around 288 and 6, and then aiming for a more small town feel in the core area, which is that yellow area with the kind of grid pattern. So aiming for a small town area feel for that around Manvel High School and City Hall. And then trying to maintain more of that semi-rural character and open space farther away from 288 and south of Highway 6 in that light green kind of area. And then creating more identity for Manvel at the major entry points along 288 and 6, which is what I was mentioning as those circle areas.
What is like little dark green scribbles?
I'm sorry?
The light green scribbles is more like rural, right? Or rural-ish. And the dark green is kind of like over there.
Sorry, this area, right?
Yeah, and what's the difference in the light green and the dark green there? That's just right around the bayous?
Yeah, this is maintaining the forestry that's already there.
Okay. But that green you're saying is just kind of more rural?
Yeah, more rural, like preserving some of it, but.
That single family, what do you call
Right.
it? Open single family.
Jennifer, the pink of the thoroughfares on the very west end, on the edge, County Road 48, is that any attention given to that? It seems to be already kind of a thoroughfare, even though the county really has done a lot to develop that, but there's still some possibility for commercial on any of that around on County Road 48?
There's a potential, we'll look at it again, we'll revisit it. County Road.
Any overlay possibilities that would continue what's going along 6 and Masters, kind of the same thing heading north? And then I see you've got one on the far east side of the city.
Yes.
And that seems to be a blank slate, so that could be also some thought given to that. What would be targeted to go there?
Industry.
Right, we'd have to look at it. It's a good question, yes. We'll definitely revisit 48.
That's probably 99.
That's a good point.
That's the line
That's what I'm
between
thinking,
Manvel
it's
and
99.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause there's a bunch of neighborhoods over here in our ETJ.
That seems, because there seems to be like, that's where there's some gas stations and all that right there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I think there's one on both sides. Okay.
Any other comments or thoughts that we should think about? Okay. So as I mentioned, for the next workshop focus, the land use, as you saw today, it's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to talk about it every time, do some deeper dives into those question mark areas that we were looking at in the circled areas in particular. Of course, all of it as a whole, but I mean, a lot of concentration to those specific areas since there's a lot of opportunities there. And then we'll go into the growth capacity, which is the utilities, infrastructure, looking at the accomplishments and key planning issues and considerations for that, the draft goals and actions for those, and then also looking at the transportation and major thoroughfare plan. But just some initial key observations that we've seen so far is that For growth capacity, that's including also public services, is the future area of the MUDs, things that we need to think about. So the pros and cons of eventual MUD absorptions, including maintenance burden the city would inherit, advance acquisition of needed easements, groundwater not yet affected by mandates requiring cities to transition toward more surface water supply to reduce the region's land surface subsidence. Not dealing with summer water shortages and mandatory conservation measures as in other Houston area cities. And then stormwater management, keep mentioning that one, the sheet flow during the storms, for example, Mississippi Road and Highway 6. And then some initial steps that we've taken so far on the thoroughfare plan. We've discussed issues and potential major thoroughfare plan changes with city staff. We met with Brazoria County. We confirmed the latest county thoroughfare plan updates, discussed further alignment coordination, especially for Manvel's ETJ. We also met with TxDOT. There's no proposed projects along TxDOT roadways except for the widening on 288 that's happening, and they said that it should be completed by 2030 to the 8 lanes. And then the Manvel update, recommended Manvel update its major thoroughfare plan to federal roadway classifications, and that's due to funding eligibility. So you have to have a major collector or higher in order to be eligible for the federal funding. So they recommended that we do that. So just to kind of recap one more time here, so the next 2 workshops that we have with you all are March 24th and April 28th. And then in May, we'll have that city council workshop roughly. And then after that, we'll have the open house on the draft plans. And then after that, we'll have the hearing draft of the plans, so sometime probably in July. And that's
Thank you very much.
That's all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for the information.
Nobody else have anything else? It's not an action item, and you have one more.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, do we have a second? All in favor? All opposed? Yes, we're out.
That one never.
Less than an hour.